Hey everybody, I just wanted to do a quick tutorial on how to do a basic amigurumi ball, and it's going to teach you a lot of the skills that you need for amigurumi, and then you should be able to take that and apply it to other projects, which will have more counting and that kind of thing, but this will give you the basic skills. So for this tutorial, you're going to need some scissors, your tapestry needle, a safety pin or stitch marker, or you could even use paper clips or some yarn just to mark your stitches, uh, your yarn you're working with, and a hook. So the hook that you want is probably going to be a size or two smaller than what is usually called for on the yarn package, unless you're using chenille yarn. And for just starting, unless you like a challenge, I would recommend that you stick with something that's a little bit more smooth and holds together really nicely. So when you're starting amigurumi, you typically are going to be going in the round and is often started with a circle. So for starting circles, I like to use a magic ring. For magic rings, I like to think of it as a slip knot that didn't get pulled tight. And so I'm just going to show you what I mean by that. So if I'm doing a slip knot, I hold my yarn like this and make a cross and then pull it around, and I have two bars here. Now if I go under the top and pull the bottom one up, then I can pull that tight, and that gives me a slip knot. And you can pull the working yarn over here and it tightens it up on my hook. And that's usually what you're using if you're starting a chain or something like that, where you're going to be crocheting back and forth for a project. Now for a magic ring, it starts the same way as a slip knot, but you don't tighten the knot. So I'm just going to show you what I mean by that. So I've got my yarn, I make my cross over and around the back. So it starts out exactly the same way as I start with a slip knot. And then I'm going to pop my hook underneath the top bar and grab the bottom bar. Now here is where it changes. So if I was doing a slip knot, I'd just keep pulling this tight. But for a magic ring, I'm going to turn my hook over. So I end up with this cross in my yarn. And then I'm going to reach over and grab my yarn and pull that through for a chain. And now I have a magic ring. So this ring, I can pull on the tail and it makes it tighter, or I can pull on this side of the ring and it makes it looser. And that's going to be really handy once we go to tighten up our first row. All right, so then I'm going to single crochet into that circle. So the way I hold it is I hold it open with my fingers here, with my middle and my ring finger, and I hold my yarn across my fingers like I normally would for getting the tension that I like. So I put my hook into the ring, and then for amigurumi, you often want your stitches to be a little bit snugger. And so usually for crochet, you would yarn over and pull that through and then yarn over again to finish the stitch. But for amigurumi, we're going to yarn under to be able to make a slightly tighter stitch, and then yarn over to finish the stitch. So I'll do that again. So into the circle, yarn under, pull through the ring, and yarn over to pull through both loops. And now I have two stitches finished in my ring. I'm going to continue that until I have 6 stitches in my ring. So yarn under and pull through the loop, yarn over and pull through both. Tighten that up just a little bit. Into the ring, yarn under, pull through, yarn over and pull through both loops. Into the ring, yarn under and pull through, yarn over and pull through both loops. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one more, 6 stitches. All right, so now I can pull this tight. And then when you are making your circle to start off with, you have your base number that you started for um, your circle. So I started with 6 stitches. Now I'm going to go into the first stitch. So amigurumi is usually crocheted in a spiral. I'm going to go into the first stitch, do my next stitch, so yarn under, pull through, yarn over, and pull through both. And then I'm going to do my increase stitch. So I'm going back into that same stitch to make an increase. And now I should have 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because now I've added an extra stitch. I'm going to be doing that all the way around the circle, adding an extra stitch. So the end of this row, I should have a total of 12 stitches. So I'm just going to mark the beginning of the row with my safety pin, just to be able to help keep track. So here's the beginning of the row. So into the next stitch, yarn under and pull through, yarn over and pull through, and then into that same stitch again for a second increase stitch. Now the stitch marker or safety pin is just there to help you keep track of where your rows end and start so that you don't have to count every time you get to your row or every stitch to make sure that you're in the spot that you want to be. All right. So now I'm back at my beginning here with my first stitch. So I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And here's my first stitch. Okay. So, excuse me. So I'm going to need to do 6 increases for every row that I want my circle to expand. So if I'm doing a third row, my first row had 6, my second row has 12, my third row is going to need to have 18 stitches. So I'm going to pop in my safety pin here to mark the end of the last row. So that was the last stitch of that row. And then this one is going to be my first stitch in the third row. Now I'm going to do my increase here. So it's beside my increase from the previous row. Now you can't increase every stitch if you're going to have 18 stitches, right? You can only add 6 instead of another 12. So this stitch I'm now going to put in a single crochet, no increase. So I don't do another stitch there. And here between the 2 increases I had from the previous row, I'm going to do another increase. So now I have increase, single crochet, increase. Here's the increase from the previous row. I'm going to do a single crochet in there and then increase. Now I like to do my increases beside instead of inside of the previous row's increases because I find then you get a spiral shape instead of straight lines. If you have straight lines, the edges tend to want to turn into straight lines as well. It's often not a big deal unless you're doing quite large shapes because as you do single crochets later, it will just help to close things up. But if you're doing very large shapes, it can become very distinct that you have straight lines happening. So I like to just do my increases beside so that it keeps a rounder shape rather than straight line shapes. So a single crochet into that increase and then an increase. So 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochet. Oops, I've got my stitches quite tight here. 2 single crochet, and then 1 single crochet and 2 single crochet. Oops. And then this is back to that last stitch there. So I'm going to do 1 single crochet there. All right. So for the next row, for row 4, it will be an increase and then 2 single crochet. So I'm going to go into this one. So I'm going to mark that last one as the last stitch of that row again. Keep my stitch marker in there. And then increase to start row 4. All right, so there's my increase to start row 4. And then I'm going to single crochet into the previous row's increase. And then single crochet again, because now I need to increase it by 6 again. But if I do more increases, it's going to have too much. So for row 4, it's increase, single crochet, single crochet. If you think of it like row 1 has 1 stitch set. Row 2 has 2 stitches per set. Row 3 has 3 stitches per set. Row 4 has 4 stitches per set. So it's like 1 increases, 2 stitches, single crochet, single crochet, single crochet. If that makes sense? So then I'm going to do my increase right beside the increase from the previous row there. And then I'm going to do a single crochet and a single crochet. And here's the increase from the previous row, so I'm going to do an increase beside that. And into that increase from the previous row, single crochet, and then single crochet. And then I'm just going to continue that all the way down the row. So increase, single crochet, and single crochet. Increase, and then single crochet and single crochet. Increase, and single crochet. And then here's the last stitch, single crochet. So you can continue doing that for as many rows as you want your circle to be big. So you could do a row 5 of increases to continue expanding that circle. So it'd be an increase with 3 single crochets, etc., and just keep going until that circle is as big as you want it. I'm just going to do the 4 rows for today. So now, if I want to start shaping it, I'm going to just do single crochets around, and that's going to start extending the shape of my amigurumi project. So the increases allow you to go outward, and then when you want it to start coming becoming more tubular, like a cylinder, then you start um, just single crochet without any increases. And this is basically the principles of shaping for amigurumi, is to just use single crochets for parts that you want to be flat or cylindrical or something like that. And then if you want to add some dimension to it, you add in increases or decreases. So now I'm just going to go around this whole circle. Actually, I'm going to mark that stitch. That's my last stitch, right? Let's mark that so that you can see when I get around my circle. So this is going to start adding some dimension to my project once I stop adding in increases. So I'm just going to single crochet all the way around. And you'll see that this starts wanting to curl now around that edge. Once I get those single crochets in. All right. Almost there, just a couple more stitches. All right, and then I'm just going to explain a little bit about what happens next. So here's my last stitch. So this side is considered the outside, like the right side of your work, and this is the wrong side of your work. And I just want to curl that around to make it so that as I'm shaping, it's a little bit more shaped the way I want to. And you can see that I'm starting to get this doming effect now. And that's because this single crochet row is going to tighten up tighten up what I've already done and start making it into more of a ball shape. So to make a ball, I'm going to do 4 rows of single crochet to be able to help it start shaping up the way I want. So I'm going to do that, and then in part 2, I will show you how to do the decreases. So just keep going with your single crochets and move your stitch every time you get, or move your stitch marker every time you get up a row until you've been able to do 4 rows. You could mark uh, the first one with another stitch marker as well. So if I just popped a stitch marker in here, just to say that's the beginning of my first row of decreases, then then you can keep going till you have 4 rows. So I have 1 row completed here, and then yeah, I'll see you in part 2.